friends! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for this week? Well, we've got the beginning of a new update cycle and some exciting functionality for you folks, and eventually new content. As most of you know, last year we did a huge revamp of all of the scopes in the game using a system that my collaborator Ale authored, and along that lines, and it's been a frequent request, especially in the modding community, wondering if the Reflex sites, which are actually way simpler, would ever get a similar revamp. And I'm excited to tell you, yes, that is what I'm working on next year. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Let's take a look at the first prototype one and talk about what is different about them. Got myself a Mark 12 Mod Zero here. So I only have one of these operating on the new system so far. This is the Arco one. So let's just take a peek down at here, and we can see a couple things about it immediately. The first is that dot is incredibly crisp. It's got like the perfect combination of solidity and sort of softness on the edge. This is being rendered in a completely different way using SDFs. It's something called a sign distance field, and this solves one of the biggest problems that I've always had with red dots in H3. Most of the sites in-game that have them, the dots are actually way bigger than would be the case in real life. They're closer to like 10 MOA dots or something like that. And that's because some of the older headsets have lower resolutions. So I've needed to make those dots bigger to make sure they're still crisp enough on lower resolution HMDs. The thing that's really cool about an SDF is that regardless of high or low my VR resolution here is, this is going to render roughly equally cleanly. So that's great to begin with. Let's see, other optical features. So one of the things that we can see as we come in here, you'll notice that we end up actually getting some of the off-angle reflection in the back and in the front. We see the sort of reflection of the environment tinted towards the color of the laser. Isn't that sick? And this is, speaking of color of the laser, we have an interface here, and let's go over here, and you will be able to change the reticle to your preference. So we can check out orange. You'll notice the dot is that color, and our reflection is now that color. Looking sick. Yellow, green. I love the green look. Of course, my favorite is blue. It will always be glowy blue. I'm just addicted to glowy blue stuff. Cobalt for a deeper blue. That's not amazing visibility, truth be told. And purple. So there you have that. We're going to keep this on blue. We also have, this is just a testing one. And so this is all the features that I show you here won't necessarily be on every Reflex site. There's going to be a variation here between realism and feature set, because I do want them to be differentiated from each other. So what that means is each one is going to only have the reticle or reticles that the real one would have, but you'll be able to change the color on all of them. But the illumination range, which we now have as an option, will vary based upon the sites. So here it is. This one in real life has, I believe it's like 4 night vision settings and intensities and 6 visible light. So we're at setting 6, which is standard full bright. We can knock it down a little bit. Oh, is this not working? Oh, is this erroring on me? That's hilarious. Of course it would error on me. Wouldn't be a devlog without a bug. Smash cut edit. I fixed the bug. It was a typo, because of course it was. So yeah, you can change reticle illumination on these. So this is it at default 1.0 intensity. We have some weaker settings that are still pretty dim but are designed to be still daylight, and then some that are completely invisible here. I think it's 0, 1, 2, and 3 we shouldn't be able to see at all here, but let's see, I think we should be able to take out some night vision here. Mind you, I have not tested this at all, so apologies if I pull this out and it's just not working. We're going to actually turn off our HD spectator cam just so that everything aligns perfectly. Hit off. So 4 is probably a little bit too bright for running in night vision, but 3 is too dim. So as I said, this is something that I'm going to iterate on and try to find the right settings. These might not even be in the correct order. Yeah, that's way too dim. And of course, we'll come back over here, flip up our night vision. And we can, of course, not just make them super dim, but we can also turn them up to be a good deal brighter. There's 9. So you can see it's just got more radiant glow. Let's see how that looks blue with a sick reticle. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Team glowy blue stuff. Here you can see these are going to be, some of these are hollow sight reticles instead of dots. That's for the EG1. There's our classic EOTech reticle. OKP7 dot cross. Look at those. Beautiful stuff. So yeah, as I said, the reticles will be based on the specific optic we're using, but there will be some configuration that in real life you wouldn't be able to do. You'll be able to individually zero these just like with scopes. So if you're adjusting for a point of aim shift due to a muzzle device that you put on your device, you'll be able to tweak windage and elevation. And of course there is a base zero, which has a significantly expanded range. In the old reflex sights in H3 just have, I believe they go from like 10 to maybe 100. But with a dot, you can, with a, even with a rifle like this, you can reliably hit things out to 500 meters consistently. And so the zero will in fact take us all the way out to 500 meters if necessary. So I don't actually know if it's offsetting right now because of that error that we are getting. So I will have to check that later. So yeah, so that is our yeah, as I said, boop, there we go. This also has a I'm not quite sure how much you could say. There we go. We can see a reflection. This one actually has a piece of glass on the outside that is using the same shader that some of the scopes use, where we have a transparent piece of glass that uses an occlusion simulation. So we notice how we don't see this, despite the fact that there's a very bright reflection behind us. We're not seeing that reflection on the glass while looking through it, but at an off angle like this, we can see that bright reflection from the ceiling light there on it. Just probably a little bit too much rendering effort put towards layers of glass on reflex sights, but that's what H3 is about. Just getting completely lost in the weeds on arguably unnecessary detail. So there you have that. Cool. Oh, and one last thing I wanted to mention. I had to learn this. This is just more of like an interesting fact. There's a number of reflex sights in the game that look like this. They have this like cool, completely opaque metallic front lens. And I had to be informed that this is not how these look, and I was trying to figure out why this sort of thing is present on so many 3D assets that artists have made of reflex sights. And I think what it comes down to is that a lot of marketing shots for these sights will be like at roughly this angle, like here, with a bright reflective environment, which is very, very similar to how you end up getting something that looks like that, where like from this angle, the front lens on there almost looks like it's opaque and metallic. But it's not. We can see through it perfectly fine. And so I think that's the reason that so many reflex sights that are like out on 3D model marketplaces have this specific consistent error in them. So Interesting facts. Anywho, let's jump out of VR. I'm going to take you through the roadmap that I've drawn up for our Reflex sights. What's going on with ones that are getting migrated, ones that are getting chopped, ones that are getting new models, and brand new ones that we're going to be adding into the game.
Yo, out of VR. So yeah, as I said, roadmap for this feature set. Now, unlike the scopes, which was many, many months to get into the game and get all done, this is a much, much more straightforward thing to put in. In fact, pretty much all of the code is done for it. Pretty much all of the features. We just have a bunch of content to migrate and some new content to put in. So what is going in? As I said, the first step is that I have taken all of the Reflex sights in the game and broken them down into 3 categories. Remaster, where basically I just tear the model apart, I reconfigure some of the lenses, make sure the geo makes sense, put in the real world specifications for that in terms of like its zeroing, MOA, what reticle it should be, how big should the dot be, what are its illumination levels, etc. And then just overwrite the old version of it. Replace where, like, the model wasn't very good, but we still want that model or a close equivalent of it in game. And then a small number of them that are just going to get removed, either because they just like weren't realistic to begin with in the game and just needed to be, just like weren't good, weren't worth keeping, weren't worth remastering. There's only like 1 or 2 or ones that there just doesn't exist a good model out there in the marketplace and it would just be a little too onerous to replace. And then on top of that, there's just a couple new ones. As I said, they're going to go in. A couple from marketplaces that have acquired that are just like gorgeous looking. And then a couple that like Ole already made working on the AR project stuff last year. And I just never got around. I think I didn't want to put them in because I knew I kind of wanted to do the Reflex sight stuff again. And so wanted to actually wait until that was done before I put more Reflex sights in the game. So those are going in. In terms of, for those of you who mod and make content for the game, I imagine you've got a couple questions. I'm just going to like bang off what the answers to what I think they are. So 1, none of the existing game's Reflex system code or functionality has been changed or manipulated or messed with at all. This change won't break any existing mods. And so if you want to rebuild any of your Reflex sights at any point, you can, but you're not forced to. And I'm not breaking any of your old stuff by doing this change. Secondly, we'll have essentially, once the system is fully mature and we know that everything works, for the Scope Club, for the subset of modders that we share all of these resources with, we have a system for making the SDF reticles because it's a special type of texture. So we'll have some documentation and just some examples, some screenshots of just like how the in-game ones are configured. So it's easy for you to add more because I'm sure there's a whole bunch of you who are into attachments and just are like, I've got a backlog of like 30 different sites I want to migrate into the game. So those will be, so we'll make sure that you have everything that you need. In terms of the order of things like week to week for the game here, I'm imagining this whole cycle is probably going to be like 4 to 6 weeks, probably closer to 6 weeks in total by the time we talk about doing a couple weeks of experimental stuff where we replace optics, we put some new ones in, we make sure everything works well, make sure the illumination levels make sense for all of them, and then move to alpha and then full release. So yeah, 6 weeks seems about reasonable. So this should basically take us to sometime in sort of like mid to late June. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. It's one of those sorts of things that like the UI is so much better on the scopes and the laser lights relative to the reflexes. This really needed to happen so that everything was just, cross compatible. And I had shown off like a year and a half ago or more, this idea of having like variable intensities on dots for improved visibility and different sorts of levels of scene illumination, all that more important now that we have night vision. And so this will allow that to all function. And it's just and just continue to like push the realism in a bunch of really enjoyable ways. There's some cool stuff involving both 1 or 2 of the optics that are present that like flicker in real life, and also just hollow sights in general have a bit of a noise and a buzz to them different from dots, and that is actually represented in this system. It looks super cool, and I'll show you folks it next week. So yeah, that's everything related to lasers. And then lastly for today, I thought I have a little bit of a side project that I'm considering, just something silly, something that came out of a conversation with a friend, that they were surprised that I had done like 9 years of a hot dog centric game and had done so little shtick involving actual food in the game. And obviously this is a space YouTuber goofing around with sausage shaped foods that is, well traveled. Many of you, I'm sure, like myself, are subscribed to Ordinary Sausage and watch those regularly. And so I would never attempt to, to challenge the majesty that is that channel and that long form shtick. But I've always had a bit, shall we say, a bit of a culinary theory in regards to a hot dog. In that, because hot dogs, like the entirety of a hot dog in like a hot dog roll, is this like perfect midpoint of sweet and savory, that as a platform, it might be the most flexible food from the perspective of condimentation. That like, if there's a condiment that exists, you probably put it on a hot dog. If there's a sauce that exists, you can probably put it on a hot dog. And so because of that, I've decided I'm going to probably, for a couple devlogs, maybe I'll do a bit of shorts. We'll see if you folks enjoy this and decide to give me fun suggestions to torture me. I've decided to do a little series called Hot Dog or Not Dog, wherein I try a whole bunch of various condiments, sauces, and things that you don't traditionally think of putting on a hot dog, just to see if it's worth eating. And so to inaugurate it, I'm actually going to try, I'm going to eat something that I have a fairly good idea that I'm going to like, that I have argued in the past other people should check out. And they've been like, absolutely not, Anton. That sounds awful. What is wrong with you? And that is the peanut butter and jelly hot dog. That's right. I have taken a Hebrew National Beef Frank, some ballpark rolls, which is going to be my unified platform for all of these tests, because in science, consistency is important. And I've applied some peanut butter and some Smucker's jam to it. So here it is, right here. Doesn't look, this is the lighting in here does not, that makes this look weirdly more orange than it does in real life. It's got to be the LEDs I'm using. That is so strange. So yeah, peanut butter and strawberry jam on a hot dog. Let's see what we think. Oh, great. It's absolutely great. You may think what I've done here is a crime against hot dogs, against sandwiches, but it's the perfect sort of like sweet to savory. Oh yeah, we're 100% eating. That is absolutely a hot dog. I'm going to eat the rest of that as I edit this very stupid devlog. So if you would like me to try out unusual condiments and sauces, especially if they're less common stuff in the US, I would love to hear your ideas, advice, challenges, stupid dares, etc. Obviously, don't tell me things that aren't food. I'm not going to put motor oil on a hot dog. That's not a condiment, because I am not an Autobot. But yeah, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to try a whole bunch of stuff on a hot dog and see if I can prove or disprove my general feeling that just about everything works on a hot dog in some fashion. So. If you don't enjoy that, well, then I guess you can just start closing these videos a little earlier than you normally do. Anywho, I hope you are excited about everything that we're doing with Reflex sights. I will have an experimental build for you next week with the first of these. They're not like, I don't have any of them integrated into the item system yet. I want to make sure the system worked before I actually started stamping on and overwriting these things. Obviously, those of you who are in the first to worst tournament, I know this that tournament's going to probably run a while and will probably overlap me pushing these releases. And so I'm going to probably go ahead and create a beta branch for our current update of the game so that you can switch to that and just stay on that version of the game throughout the tournament, even if I end up pushing this to full release in 4 to 5 weeks, because obviously I don't want to like change important competition variables in the middle of that. And for all the rest of you, I hope you've enjoyed this nonsense, and I will see you all next week. Peace.